I am pleased to be joined on tonight's show by Councilman at Large from the City of Elizabeth. He's been a councilman here in our city since 2001, a principal in our city. He's worked very hard with young people throughout his tenure in our community. Councilman at Large, Frank Cuesta. Councilman, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
Now, I know we'll start, but you also knew Congressman Donald Payne.
Absolutely, and I have to say I agree with you 100%. He will be dearly missed. Congressman Payne was one of those individuals that our community would go to, and he would take care of us. In particular, I can tell you that we reached out to him many times in terms of needs for immigration information, and his office was always there for us. So our community would dearly miss Congressman Payne.
Councilman, we're beginning the fourth year of your current term, and you were elected in 2000 and 2004 and then re-elected in 2008. But as you know, since 2008, the country's experienced a deep recession. We've had high unemployment, housing problems, bank bailouts. I mean, the people in Washington, we often curious on what they're doing down there. Through all of this, how do you think the city's doing?
I think the city has done remarkably well, considering the fact that nationally and statewide, of course, the economy has suffered and we have had many setbacks. But if you look at the city of Elizabeth, one of the largest cities in the state, compared to those other large cities, we have done fairly well. And Mayor, I have to give you credit. You have been able to work very closely with not only within your administration, but also with City Council to make sure that we maintain the services in terms of police, fire, sanitation, public health, and education, and helping at the same time the senior citizens. So I think overall we have done fairly well during this very, very difficult time.
You know, Councilman, we've watched other communities lay off police and fire, yet in the City of Elizabeth, with the help of the City Council, we've been able to hire over the recent months.
We have been able to do that, and again, I give you credit for that. I think it's a tremendous credit to you and your administration that we have been able to hire more police officers that are needed in the city. And as you said before, as opposed to other municipalities where officers have been laid off.
The resiliency of our residents obviously has a positive impact on our city and how we weather the storm. But as a councilman at large, you represent the whole city. City Council has worked with numerous families throughout the city as well in foreclosure and other areas. Tell us a little bit from your perspective how City Council has worked with people in the City of Elizabeth to make sure they stay above water in some of these difficult times.
Well, one of the things the City Council has done, in my opinion, is follow your lead. And one of the things that we have done is provide as much information as possible to families in terms of job opportunities, in terms of small businessmen obtaining loans. So by providing those services, some of those individuals have been able to do well. There's no question about the fact that the housing market has suffered. But again, we have led the community the right way. And the citizens in Elizabeth, I give them a lot of credit. They have taken advantage of the opportunities that come along their way.
The challenges you faced over the last 4 years, you left the school board as a principal, you retired, you're now still working with young people, but talk about some of the challenging parts of the last 4 years.
Well, the last 4 years have been, in terms of as a councilman, have been difficult because we do not enjoy anymore or this time I should say, the kind of relationship that we had with the previous governor. It seems that Governor Cuesta really has declared war on urban cities like Elizabeth, and instead of working with us in partnership, many times he throws obstacles our way. So that has been quite frustrating to me. And again, I give you and your administration credit because despite that, Elizabeth continues to flourish and to do well.
Yeah, I mean, we had a slight tax cut last year with the help of City Council. And the City Council voted for a budget 7-2, and you were part of the 7 that actually voted for the tax cut.
Excuse me, yes, and I was proud to do that. I was proud to support your initiative. I think it's tremendous that at a time when most municipalities are raising taxes, we are able to lower taxes here in the City of Elizabeth. And that's, again, a credit to your administration and your staff.
And how does this term compare to the last 2 terms?
Well, this term, as I said before, has been a little bit more challenging because we did not get the opportunity to have the resources that we had before. But on the other hand, I have learned more, and I'm prepared to continue service in the City of Elizabeth. I am so proud, Mayor, to be a councilman in this city, such a diverse city, such a dynamic city with people who really truly care about their quality of life and about their children's education, and they really work hard to make sure that their children move ahead. And to me, as you said, that's dear to my heart.
And Councilman, recapping the accomplishments and the responsibility of proposing new initiatives to their constituents, tell us about the successes as councilman at large, and what do you see for the future of Elizabeth?
I think the future of Elizabeth is very bright. One of the areas in which I would like to concentrate is providing more recreational facilities. As you know, with your support, I was able to introduce resolution in City Council whereby in the 6th Ward, O'Brien's Field will be renovated so we can better service the youth of that community. I am one of those individuals that believe strongly that the future of a city lies in our youth. And that is one of the areas where I continue to concentrate on, despite the fact that I am now presently retired, as you mentioned
yeah,
before.
I mean, with your role in working with kids, you saw an opportunity at O'Brien Field, and you suggested to us, along with Councilman Nelson Gonzalez, you discussed it with myself and Director Paul Odessa and said, hey, how about we put a turf field in O'Brien Field? And, putting the finance together, you led that effort. Tell us what it was like.
Yeah, it was really interesting because at first there was some opposition from 2 of the council members, but I was very pleased that the majority of the council members realized that the idea I was introducing, as you said, with the support and help of President Nelson Gonzalez, it was something that was needed in our community, needed in our city. And I reminded everyone that as a councilman at large, I represent the entire city, so I was within my rights to make that recommendation, and I am pleased that it was finally approved. It took some effort, like anything else, but it was approved, and I'm very happy with that endeavor.
Now, what's it feel like being retired as a principal from the Elizabeth Board of Education? Do you ever think you'd get to retirement? You're not really retired, though.
No, I'm not really retired. I have a part-time job in Hoboken, but I have to tell you that it was difficult for me to retire. It was probably the right time. As you and I have discussed in the past, I was not happy with the direction that the Board of Education and Superintendent of Schools were taking this district. I was very disappointed with what they were doing, and I could no longer be part of a system that really did not concentrate its efforts in helping young people, but instead they concentrated their activities in promoting their political views and political agendas, and I could no longer be part of the system.
Councilman, one of the things when you say about their politics, they claim that the high school is one of the top schools in the country. Truth of the matter is they've segregated out the top students and they've let the others kind of fend for themselves, right?
They have. That statement is so false and so ridiculous. What they did was they divided Elizabeth High School, one of the largest high schools in the country, into 6 buildings. And in one particular building, the Upper Academy, where we have some of the finest students in Elizabeth, and of course you and I are happy that those students are doing well and excel there. But when they compare just that building to other schools in the state and in the country, it's really misleading. They're basically comparing the elite of Elizabeth, about 500 students, to the rest of the world, and that's totally wrong. If they were to compare the entire student body in Elizabeth, we would not do as well as they claim we're doing.
Yeah, but shouldn't the message be, Councilman, that instead of just concentrating on the 500 best students, that they should be working to pull up the grades of the others and making sure that the marginal student or the at-risk student has an opportunity to excel at education as well?
There's no question about that. When we concentrate our efforts only in one building and we neglect the other schools, what we're doing is essentially promoting the dropout rate to increase, which it has increased over the years. And that, of course, translates into more young people in the streets with nothing to do. And unfortunately, then you have a situation where crime increases. So I really strongly believe that, yes, we should concentrate our efforts in providing opportunities to those students who are not doing well, who are at risk, while at the same time encouraging those who are doing well to do even better.
How do we do that? How do we tell the school board's difficult people to have a dialogue with, but how do we do that?
You're absolutely right. Very difficult people to have a dialogue with. As a matter of fact, let me briefly say that right before I retire, I was able to obtain 3 grants for the school system, and I was not allowed to receive those grants because they did not want me to do anything good in that regard. In my humble opinion, what we have to do is elect board members who truly care about education. Elect young men and women who are going to go there and put education first and forget about politics. We have to get the politics out of the school. A famous Spanish philosopher by the name of Seneca said hundreds of years ago that politics and education don't mix. The politics has to be taken out of the school system in order for the school system to do better.
Well, the November election may help that. I mean, there'll be a lot more people voting on the school board commissioners than there have been in the past.
I'm really hoping so. I'm hoping that now that the election has been moved to November, I am convinced that more people will come out to vote, and I hope that people vote for the right individuals and the right candidates.
And the ideas that you have don't stop there either. You have other ones to correct besides electing people. I mean, what else would you do in the schools? You worked with kids for a long time.
One of the things you have to do is motivate the students to do well. You have to provide opportunities for them to do meaningful community service, not simply tell them to spend a couple of hours here and there so they can fulfill a requirement. Meaningful community service.
You did that, though, when you were the principal.
I did that when I was the principal, and we did that with a lot of success.
And tell us, you did one at the waterfront, others?
Well, one of the things that I did was I reached out to the community, I reached out to City Hall, I reached out to the young men and women of Elizabeth High School, and we did, one of the things that we did was we did a cleanup in the waterfront. And I remember vividly one of the students, George Casalings, who really took the lead in that effort, and he was instrumental in helping me promote the idea that is our city, and we have to maintain it clean, and we have to do the best we can to improve the quality of life for all people in Elizabeth.
Councilman, we're going to run a few commercials. We'll be back to talk more about the City of Elizabeth and the Board of Education. Please stay with us after these messages. We're back with more with Councilman at Large Frank Cuesta. Welcome back to our city, where I'm joined by Councilman at Large Councilman Frank Cuesta. Councilman, one of the things that's happened over the last couple of weeks here in the City of Elizabeth is there's been a lot of newspaper articles talking about the violations and the mismanagement of the school board. 3 people were arrested in the school board for free lunch scandal. Investigations are underway. The Star-Ledger constantly reports that there's federal and state investigations. What are your feelings about this? How's it going to affect the education system?
Well, Mayor, I teach my children that in life there are no free lunches. If you want something, you have to work hard for it in order to get it. It has been very frustrating to me to see how these individuals have really tarnished the image of Elizabeth in a way because they committed a criminal act. Not only the president of the Board of Education, but top administrators or relatives of top administrators. And I think it's really a shame that some of those individuals continue in their positions. As you know, in City Council, I introduced a resolution asking for the Board of Education president to resign immediately because of her arrest, and she has refused to do so. And that's really a shame. It's something that really frustrates me and angers me, because she has no business running the Board of Education at the present time.
And Councilman, Senator Lesniak passed legislation that, as a direct result of all this negative press concerning the Board of Education, prohibits campaigning in public buildings and schools. We've known that teachers and principals mostly do that, and they also raise money on school buildings. Do you think they go underground and hide it, or do you think they really stop?
I applaud Senator Lesniak for introducing that legislation, and I am convinced that the legislation is going to, if not stop, prevent a great deal of this abuse by corrupt board members, such as some of the ones that we have in the City of Elizabeth. It's really a shame that a teacher and a school administrator cannot go to school simply to teach and to run the schools in a way that is really more beneficial for the students, but instead they have to worry about this intimidation and this fear that many of them experience, because they know very well that if they do not buy the tickets or they do not sell the tickets, they will not be promoted, and in some cases they might even be fired. As a matter of fact, as you know, that has been reported by the Star-Ledger, and that has happened. Individuals who decided not to participate in such an abusive system of fundraising, and as a result they lost their positions. So I'm really hoping that the legislation puts an end to it.
You know, a retired Supreme Court Justice, Gary Stein, and his son made over $700,000 from the school board in the last couple of months. And they issued a report that talks about exactly what you just said. And they tried to interview 530 people, and only 131 agreed to be interviewed. and they said that this doesn't exist. And we spent, not we, but the Board of Education spent almost $700,000 of taxpayer money to get a report that basically says the Star Ledger is incorrect. Is that a good use of taxpayer money instead of educating our kids?
Absolutely not, Mayor. It was a very self-serving report. An agency that decides to investigate itself and pay someone $700,000. Obviously, that report was going to be favorable to them. And it's really a shame. It's really embarrassing that a retired Supreme Court justice will lend himself to something like this, because I have to assume that given his past legal background, that he was doing well financially. Why would he accept this kind of money to put out there a report that anyone who has any common sense would know is not legitimate? The fact of the matter is there have been a number of people who have come forward and have said, yes, I have been intimidated. Yes, they forced me to do this and to do that. The fact of the matter is that out of almost 4,000 employees, they only interview 131. And we don't even know who they are. So those could have very well been mostly people that, of course, we're going to
benefited from the
that benefited from their
contribution.
From the contribution, absolutely. But as an attorney myself, it's really embarrassing to me to have witnessed retired Justice Stein's press conference where he spent literally 80% of the time attacking you, attacking Senator Lesniak and other elected officials, instead of addressing the real issues for which he was hired.
Yeah, but if you're Rafael Fajardo and Pablo Munoz and you go to Gary Stein and you say, I'm going to give you $700,000, can you write a report that I want? What do you do if you're Gary Stein?
Of course. Gary Stein did what he was paid more than $500,000 to do. He did exactly what they asked him to do, and that is why most people that I talk to tell me that they don't believe it, that they know it's false.
Yeah.
That they know it's something that should have never taken place, and obviously a complete waste of taxpayers' money.
And the governor is awful silent on all of this.
And the governor continues to be silent regarding this for obvious reasons, because at one time, most board members, there were 8, I think, at one time, who supported him and took their pictures with him and raised money for him. And he talks about corruption here and there, but he totally overlooks what is happening at the Elizabeth Board of Education.
And Councilman, one of the other things before we go off the air in this show is, for tonight, you've been extremely active in the community, in the Cuban community, with other organizations. You're a member of the Cuban Club. You've been participating in interests. You're working with a different group as well. Tell us what you're working with and the focus of your group today.
Well, recently, a few months ago, with the help of President Nelson Gonzalez and community activists such as Onida Duran, I created a group that is called Hispanos Unidos, Hispanics United, and basically that group was created to promote the participation of young people in the political and civic process of the city, because I am convinced that we have to inculcate in our young generation that Elizabeth's future is really in their hands. And I'm very proud that in a very short period of time, we have held numerous events with hundreds of people participating, and people are beginning to recognize that this group is a force to be reckoned with in the civic community in the years to come.
And you're still working on a scholarship?
I'm still working on a scholarship. That is my pride and joy. Elizabeth's Promise will hold its 7th annual scholarship program on Friday, May 4th at Bamboo Restaurant here in Elizabeth, and we're really looking forward to that, so we can once again honor and recognize outstanding students from Elizabeth.
And some of the students you recognized have done extremely well at colleges and universities around the country.
Some of those students are my pride and joy. Some of them have graduated from Harvard, from MIT, from Rutgers, from Princeton, and I'm really proud to say that they continue to stay in touch with me and often communicate with me and visit and tell me how they're doing, and I'm really proud of that fact.
Now, tell us about some other projects you're working on.
Well, some of the other projects that I'm working on include, as I stated earlier, but I'm working closely with President Nelson Gonzalez to make sure that the O'Brien Field project is not the only one we work on. Nelson has come up with other ideas about how to improve the number of soccer fields in the city, because as you know, that is one sport that is extremely popular in our city, and it's very important for us to continue to offer those opportunities to young men and women, so they do well and they're not instead of hanging around the streets and perhaps doing things that they should not be doing.
Well, in a couple of weeks, we're going to open up the soccer field at the waterfront, and it's going to be combined as one soccer and football, and we're going to have both soccer kids and football kids there.
Yes, I'm excited about that, and I'm planning to be there for the opening. I think it's the kind of thing that really attracts people to Elizabeth, and I give you and your administration credit, because despite the fact, as we said earlier, that there have been some economic difficulties throughout the country, people continue to invest in Elizabeth. People continue to move to Elizabeth, and they continue to enjoy a great lifestyle here in the city of Elizabeth.
Next week's show, we're going to have Director Paul Odessa talking about recreation fields and soccer fields, and the growth of soccer not only in our city but throughout the community is large.
Well, I will make sure that I watch the show, because I'm sure that Paul Odessa, we have a lot of ideas and a lot of things. He's been instrumental in actually bringing many of these initiatives to the city of Elizabeth. He's a wonderful director.
Councilman, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us on the show. I look forward to campaigning with you this year, and enjoy the rest of the great weather we have in March.
Thank you, Mayor. I will continue to enjoy this weather.
For Councilman Frank Cuesta, I'm Chris Bolwage. We'll see you next week on another edition of Our City.